Alright everyone, I'm going to show you how to modify the Crybaby Mini to have a light indicator. The Crybaby Mini comes true bypass already, which is a good thing, but we have to change the foot switch out to a triple pull double throw foot switch, which gives us an extra row of lugs to add our LED. For this mod, we're going to need the triple pull double throw true bypass switch, an LED and holder of your choice, a 1K resistor, and for this mod, we're going to need a solder sucker of some sort, whether it's a pin like this or the squeeze bottle style. We're going to be removing this ribbon from the circuit board, and we're going to need to remove the solder from the holes so we can put our new wires in them. Now, the original Dunlop switch that we're going to be removing is longer, taller than the one that we're going to be replacing it with. So once we install this foot switch all the way, it's not going to reach and engage. We're going to have to shim up the felt that's in here in the inside. I found that these Gorilla pads that you can find at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, or Amazon is the perfect material. It's felt and rubber and happens to be the perfect height and size that fits in here so the pedal engages when we step on it. Okay, let's talk prep before we start. I already drilled and mounted my LED holder. There's plenty of room to put the LED on this side, but if you're right-handed and you step on your pedal with your right foot, your body is standing to the left side of your pedal and you won't be seeing the LED on this side. You want to see the LED on this side. So I would carefully center between the pot and jack here, or this chunk of material. Carefully drill your hole so you don't hit the pot or that screw right there. Also, I noticed when I put this foot switch in here, the foot switch was rubbing against this gear just a tiny bit. So I took a file and I shaved a little bit of the material off the housing so the switch can move down just a tiny bit to make room to where that wasn't rubbing anymore. I don't know if you have to do that on all mini Crybabies. I just know that when I was doing the mock-up, that was rubbing and I had to move the switch just ever so slightly forward. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the circuit board from the housing. So we're going to take off this nut, that one. We're going to remove that screw right there. Take off this connector and the whole pedal should come out. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our solder sucker and we're going to unsolder the ribbon right here. So I unsoldered that already and I have all of these holes now clear. Okay, next we're gonna put our new wires here. I'm gonna color code them and tell you what they are. You can use whatever color wires you have, just don't mix up the order. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to solder a green wire on the far left one, and that is our input wire from the jack. Alright, yours should look something like that. The next wire I'm going to be putting in is a white wire right next to that one, like that. And that's our input effect wire, so that's the input to the circuit. Alright, yours should look something like that. The next wire I'm putting in is a purple wire, and that is the output wire from the circuit. Alright, yours should look something like that. And the very last wire I'm going to be putting in is a blue wire, and that is the output wire to the jack. Alright, so yours should look something like that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a red line, or red wire, your wire of choice, to that lug right here. And that is power for our LED. Alright, that should look something like that. Alright, I don't know if you can see how that's no longer a perfectly round circle. I got a file, and I just shaved this little area on the bottom like this to get the foot switch to move further down like so. Okay, if you can see, that is really close, but it is no longer touching the foot switch. Now we can put the circuit back in the pedal. Alright, now that the circuit is back inside the housing, we're going to wire up our foot switch. So the wire on the far left, which was my green wire, I'm going to solder that. I'm going to solder that to the center left lug. Alright, yours should be something like that. Next, I'm going to get the second wire, which was my white wire, and I'm going to solder it to the top left lug above the green, like that. Alright, and next I'm going to take the third wire, which is my purple wire, and I'm going to solder that to the top center lug next to the white wire, like that. Next, we're going to get the last wire on there, which is my blue wire, And we're going to solder that to the center lug. Like that. Next, we're going to get a little tiny jumper wire, and we're going to place it on the two bottom lugs. And we're going to solder it like that on the two bottom lugs. Alright, so yours should look something like that. The next thing we're going to do is install our LED wherever you have yours installed. When you're looking at an LED, there is, let me see, can I get that in focus? There's a long lug, a long stem and a short stem. The long stem is the positive. The short stem is the negative. So the red wire that we soldered onto the board, which is our power, we're going to solder that to the long stem of the LED. You don't have to shrink wrap your positive, but I did, just so nothing moves around and touches anything. Alright, next we're going to get a ground wire or a wire and solder it to the negative side of the LED. And we're going to solder the other end to the top right lug. Alright, yours should look something like this. We have power line ran to the positive side of our LED and a wire going from the negative side to the top right lug. Lastly, we're going to get our 1-watt resistor, which I have one already that I insulated, and we're going to solder one part of that resistor onto this black wire right here that's on the pot itself. Right down in there. I'll do a close-up picture. And the other end of the resistor is going to go to the center lug. Alright, I'll do a close-up picture if that's not clear enough, but we have our resistor soldered to the center lug and to the black wire on the pot. Okay, lastly, no matter how hard I step on this, it will not engage. So, we're going to get that Gorilla Pad or whatever you're going to be using to shim that felt up. I'm just going to stick the pad in there just like that. Again, it is the perfect size and material. Perfect.